God bless everyone. Today we're going to discuss about standards and dilemmas. First of all, I am Rizalyn B. Alimurin and my co-partner Herm Natalie Evareta.
Moral standard refers to the norms which we have about the types of actions which we believe to be morally acceptable and morally unacceptable. But to me, moral standard is a set of guiding principles that help determine what is right or wrong and guide people to act with fairness, honesty, and respect toward others.
Non-moral standard statutes are laws enacted by legislative bodies. These statutes are created and enforced by government to regulate behavior and maintain the order of society. So while some statutes align with moral principles like law against murder, many are considered non-moral standards because they focus on practical matters like safety, efficient, or social convention rather than inherent right or wrong. For example is traffic law. So statutes like stopping at a red light or driving on a specific side of the road are designed for safety and to ensure smooth traffic flow. And other example is licensing requirements, law requiring licenses for professions like kanang doctor, mga lawyers, electricians are statutes that ensure mga practitioners meet certain qualifications and protect public safety. Non-moral standard refers to rules that are unrelated to moral or ethical considerations. So non-moral standards, rules nga about things that aren't really about right or wrong. For example is etiquette. So refers to the norms of correct conduct in polite society or more generally to any special code of social behavior or courtesy. So kanang etiquette is important for showing respect, build of relationship, and mag-avoid of mga conflict or offense to other people. So, for example, table etiquette. Nag-include diri ang rules as not talking with your mouth full, using proper utensils, and also other example is like rules of a game and proper company dress code, like you have to wear business casual attire to the office, like that. That is an example of non-moral standards.
These are the characteristics of moral standards. Moral standards involve serious wrongs or significant benefits, which means moral standards deal with actions or behaviors that can greatly affect well-being or right of others. In other words, moral standards are concerns with what is deeply right or wrong, not just with minor issues or personal preferences. Example, cheating on exam. Why? Because it affects your honesty and fairness. It's morally wrong because it gives you an unfair advantage over others. Another example, stealing someone's wallet is a serious moral wrong because it harms another person and violates their rights. On the other hand, volunteering at a shelter or helping an elderly person cross the streets provides significant benefits because it shows kindness and concern for others. Moral standard ought to be preferred to other values means that moral standards are more important than other kinds of values. In other words, when moral values like honesty, justice, or respect conflict with non-moral values like popularity, comfort, or money, moral values should come first because They guide what we ought to do, even if it's difficult or inconvenient. Example: a student finds a lost wallet full of money. Keeping it would be convenient and beneficial for him, but returning it to its owner is the morally right thing to do. Why? Because honesty should be preferred over personal gain. Moral standards are not established by authority figures, means that moral standards do not simply come from the orders or opinions of people in power, such as parents, teachers, government officials, or religious leaders. Instead, moral standards are based on universal principles of right and wrong, like fairness, respect, honesty, and justice, which remain true even if an authority says otherwise. Example: if a boss or manager tells an employee to lie to a customer to make more sales, the employee should know it's morally wrong, even though the instruction comes from someone in an authority. Moral standards have the trait of universalizability, means that moral standards apply to all people in similar situations, not just to one person or group. In other words, if an action is considered right or wrong for one person, it should also be considered right or wrong for everyone else in the same kind of situation. Moral rules are fair, consistent, and universal, not based on personal bias or special treatment. Example: if it's wrong for one student to cheat on a test, then it's also wrong for all students. Why? Because no one should be an exception. Another, if helping a person in need is good for you to do, then it's good for anyone else to do as well. Moral standards are based on impartial considerations, means that moral standard should be fair and not influenced by personal interest, bias, or favoritism. In other words, when making moral decisions, a person should treat everyone equally and consider what is right for all, not just what benefits themselves. Example: a teacher who gives grades should do so fairly based on students' performance, not on who she likes more. And another example: when resolving a conflict between two classmates, a teacher should listen to both sides equally, not just take the sides of their favorite students. Moral standards are associated with special emotions and vocabulary, means that moral standard involves strong feeling and specific words that express moral approval or disapproval. In other words, when we talk about morality, we often feel emotions like guilt, shame, pride, compassion, or anger, and we use moral terms such as right, wrong, good, bad, just or fair or unfair. These emotions and words show how deeply morality affects our conscience and relationship with others. Example: when someone donates to charity, others might praise them as good or kind, and the person might feel joy or satisfaction for doing the right thing. Another example: when a person cheats or steals, people may call the act wrong or unfair, and the person might feel shame, guilt, or regret afterward.
Dilemmas. It is a conflict in which you have to choose between two or more actions and have moral reasons for choosing each action. So, dilemmas, you are forced to choose between two or more options. Like, for example, having to choose between saving your dog from a fire or saving a cat, your cat. So that is a tough choice that you have to choose. Though that is an example of dilemmas. Other than that is um, you're able to choose study versus fun. So you have to decide between going to a party with your friends or staying home to study for an important exam that could affect your grades. So you have to choose between two of them. So that is like an example of dilemma.